who are your, what is the landscape in terms of who's offering rooms legally, illegally. So to give you some examples, Airbnb had a lot of pushback in several cities. What happened as a result was New York hoteliers in London, they made cases against Airbnb in courts to stall them from operating. It didn't work. Dubai, on the other hand, where I'm based, were more pragmatic. They made a deal with them. Listen, we don't mind you operating, provided you follow these rules. So this in turn brought the informal listings of Airbnb, which used to happen in Dubai till they had signed this agreement with the RTO, the DTCM. They brought them under the tax umbrella. Now there's no tax per se in Dubai, but regulated. The technology exists today. There are several models through which this can be done. One way to do this would be to consolidate these informal players by telling them, listen, it's a win-win situation. Don't tax them too heavily. It's not just an issue of tax, it's also security. So there are two provisions that have to be taken into account. And there are digital tools to monitor. It's always a cat and mouse game. At the moment, those playing on the informal sector seem to be a step ahead of regulatory authorities. But now with the technology available, the cost of technology being so low and going lower, the variety of tools that are available to monitor is just humongous. So it's very much possible. It's just about creating a capacity within the regulatory authorities to monitor these mechanisms to ensure compliance. Once that is done, the stakeholders themselves will feel, yeah, it's worthwhile paying that little bit of tax, being sort of regulated, and at the same time getting business. Provide them visibility on the websites of the Sri Lanka Tourism Board, for instance. So that will further encourage them, okay, we are not lonely the game. For the young entrepreneurs among you, this is a good opportunity to consolidate. I can give you an example. Oyo Keys is a startup based out of India. They played with independent hotels and even the informal operators to bring them under one umbrella, to give them one channel through which they could book, provided they maintained certain standards. Sort of Airbnb model, but more catered towards the informal hotel operators. So,
Yasmin, you had some thoughts about how to formalize the informal sector. Perhaps you can share. Yeah. No, you had some thoughts around how we can professionalize the informal sector, right?
Yes, I mean, I think one of the key issues that I'm recognizing coming into Sri Lanka after many years away is a sense of short-termist thinking. And I think it's understandable. You know, it's a country that was in civil war for over 30 years. Perhaps long-termism wasn't on the agenda, but I think that one of the key things you could see is a lot of the leaders here today leading by example. And I still think that we see everyone kind of working on their own. And I think that theme has been coming up a lot here today. The lack of collaboration, the lack of support from each other. And I think I mentioned that earlier when we spoke outside, and I don't mean colluding, I mean collaboration. And that's something that I would like to see from the top, because I think that's something that we really could see filter down from the larger corporates, you know, the conglomerates in the country, down to small and medium-sized vendors, down to service personnel. And that is really a stronger emphasis on long-termist thinking. Because I think we have so much potential across many areas, and I think that has certainly come up today. I know within my industry, we're nowhere close to where we can be. But the short-termist thinking means that we're struggling against each other, where we could cooperate and really grow our market share or our piece of the cake or whatever you want to call it substantially. So that's something I would like to emphasize, that I think, and that comes from many of those in the room. It certainly comes from young people as well, bringing that mentality in, but long-termist thinking. I think that's where we stand to really benefit.
Okay. Ranjit, I'll turn to you. You are a veteran development banker as well, right? One of the complaints is that the banking sector is not supporting the tourism sector, especially the informal sector. What are your thoughts around that? Because you set up NDB, Mr. Fernando, Mr. Ranjit Fernando.
Sorry.
You know, I said you are a veteran development banker, right? One of the complaints in the tourism industry, especially the informal sector, is that the banking sector is not actually supported them enough, right? What are your thoughts around that?
With regard to the small informal sector, there's a lot of support now being directed by the government to that sector. But most of the hotels have been funded by the banks and supported by the banks over the years. So I think it's the informal sector that needs some push, and the government is focusing attention on the informal sector now.
Is the development banks doing enough, or?
I think the development banks have basically become commercial banks today. I mean, so that's a tragedy, I mean, in the sense. But there is a move by the government to set up another development bank and refocus these development banks into developmental lending.
Yeah, okay. Ranjit, now that you're with the mic, talk us through about some of the things Sri Lankan Airlines is doing to promote Sri Lanka as a destination.
I think, as I was saying before, our links with the tourism industry and with the tourist board is very faint now, I mean very little. So we are initiating a discussion with them because certain destinations have to be promoted aggressively by us together. Now we have Sri Lankan holidays which we offer in the airline, but that is to individuals. But in a concerted effort to promote that, the particular destination like Paris or Frankfurt, we took off those because we were running at a loss on those lines. But if we really go down and join with the tourism board in promoting those two destinations, I'm sure the airline could run it on a profitable way. At least the yields can come up. So we are doing that. We are really getting to that. And we will, as I said, we are very conscious of our role in tourism development, and we will more or less in the future do some things, some initiatives together with the tourist board.
What about capacity into India and some of the South Asian markets? Are you going to increase, or that's another thing that a lot of people are interested in?
Most of our flights are full. Our cabin factor is 83%.
Yeah.
But we run at a loss because we don't get the proper yield on the things. And sometimes our pricing is higher than the competitor. So our costs are high.
Yeah.
And I think in the ticket sales, we don't get the premium prices and we sell it at the lowest bracket. So some of those things are being corrected now, really.
Pardon me for asking this. Is there a hope for this airline? No.
I think so. I think so, really. I think so.
Okay. Ajay, can I Sunil. Yeah.
If I may add to what I said before, there were 3 other things that we have introduced as well. We work on a theme called KSAM. K is for knowledge, S is for skills, A is for attitude, and M is for mindset. So through our academic courses, we give them the knowledge. Through the industrial training and practical training, we give them the skills. And then we do a lot of soft skills training for positive mental attitude, and then create the right mindset, a can-do mindset. So we work on that theme for every student. And the other is that we keep on upgrading our curriculums, and we have close interaction with the industry as well.
Okay. Ajay, can I turn to you? Given that there's a lot of stress on our infrastructure, given there's so much of stress on our infrastructure, having 2.5 million tourists, right? Ajay. Yeah. Right? Given that we have stress on our infrastructure, handling 2.5 million tourists. Now, for example, the airport is handling 9.5 million. They should be only doing 6.5 to 7, right? What do we need to do to move upmarket so that we get high spending tourists instead of this 165 per capita, where we can get people to spend 250 or 225?
See, tourists nowadays, they're looking for experiences, right? So experiences where the premiumness comes in. So you can have base tourism, but when they come to a place to do, they seek what are the experiences the country offers, right? Now, if we are clever enough, and I think we are, creative industries play a huge role in that. Like, for example, unsuccessfully, I tried to work with the National Museum, because the most magnificent building in the heart of Colombo, I don't think many tourists even know we have a museum in Colombo, right? Compared to any European city, museum is the first place that the tourists would go to, right? So we have certain landmarks which are still unexplored, which can be, you know, in a very creative manner showcased, you know. So you have the museums, you have experiences with, you know, I remember World Spice Festival I thought was a huge potential. You know? So we need experiences like that, where it sticks in people's mind that when they go there are emotional properties, emotional events that they can always go to, and that brings premiumness to the whole product, right? So I feel, like I said, it's an open space. You know, for example, you know, I'm involved in the fashion industry. Fashion weeks around the world always work with the tourism department. You go to New York Fashion Week, go to Paris Fashion Week, go to Barcelona, Madrid. They always work with the tourism department because, you know, together you build the experience of the creative industries which people come and consume. So I think that's really important because it requires a creative mind and little, you know, a smart thinking. So you could be clever in doing it as well. You know.
Alston, can I move to you? If you take the visibility of Sri Lanka as a destination, as a country, are we doing enough, or what more can we do?
Well, as I see it from eyes overseas, we are just starting to make or build a foundation with the way things are going. I know that Sri Lanka Tourism is taking Sri Lanka to the world. I hear of events being planned in England, in Hollywood, and also in Japan. So as a focus on events like that, we are attracting the upper levels of tourism, which is very, very important for Sri Lanka. But having said that, we must also remember that we've got some amazing, true, some people say it's a mythical, stories that go well in hand with Sri Lanka. Sometimes our big brother, which during my time in Sri Lanka was my small brother, India, we tend to be fight shy. For example, I think that the greatest love story ever told is not Romeo and Juliet. The greatest love story ever told is about Rama and Sita. And every child, every school-going child like me, from our young age, we were told about Rama and Sita. And what a story that is. There are Ramayana trails in Sri Lanka, which we have to develop. And these are things that people will travel all over the world. We've got 1 billion Indians around the world that will flock back to Sri Lanka. Whether they believe in Rama or Ravana or whatever context they want to take it in, still, it is one of the greatest mythical lores in this world. So things like that. The great story of Kashyapa and Sigiriya, a living monument. I mean, to me, it's probably the eighth wonder of the world because it's got such an immense effect on us. And we can carry that story to the world. We've got the Dutch fort in Gaul. I believe we can have something like the Edinburgh military tattoo in the precincts of the Gaul fort and the cricket ground right outside there, where we can have, I know because I was basically born in Gaul, there is a tributary of the sea coming in through the river, which is about 8 fathoms deep. And we can have the reenactment of the landing of the Portuguese, the landing of the Dutch, and the landing of the British in 1815, and go on, and have international events taking place so that we attract the tourists. They've got somewhere to go, something to see on a Sunday perhaps. I mean, what can we provide the tourist when he comes in, other than the temples in Sri Lanka and a few other little casinos and things happening around Colombo.
Okay. Can I turn to the control of immigration? In terms of improving our services in the airport, right? What more should we be doing? And what role can the tourism ministry play?
From the government point of view, I would reiterate the fact that we need to establish a perpetual joint inter-agency task force. Those are playing key roles and complementary roles together. So that's what it should be, a perpetual arrangement where the agencies which are directly relevant and indirectly relevant to the tourism sector development should work together under a perpetual joint interagency task force basis. There you need to identify the strategies, and as and when the process goes on, if there are issues to be handled, then and there you can, in a single table, you can thrash out all the issues and move forward.
I just got a SMS from somebody. They are asking why you can't have the business class, for business class, a separate queue in the immigration.
Yeah, that is also relating to the space provided already, but we are in the
So
process
is it a
of
space
improving.
problem or?
No, yeah, we have, but there's a development process that we are going to improve the number of counters dedicated for the arrival and departure. So
Okay.
once the sufficient number of counters are established, then we can consider these things
Okay.
to further facilitate all these business class and commercial travelers.
Okay.
So that's not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since the chairman of Sri Lankan Airlines is also here, what support would you need from the airline?
Yeah, of course. Now,
Yeah.
today also I had a meeting, discussion with the airline, Sri Lankan airline, as to how we can work together.
Yeah.
Now, to manage the crowd that is basically on the increase.
Yeah.
So that's what again I'm telling, that ASL, Sri Lankan Airlines, and customs, immigration. So we need to work together and identify a strategy, common strategy, where we can play different roles from each and every agency.
Okay. Dino, can I turn to you? You had a lot of ideas about how we can spruce up the airport.
Yes.
And what the tourism ministry can do in terms of.
Yes, I think the most important thing for us is to have a meet and greet service, which is not there. And anyone can do paging when you buy a 300 rupee ticket, and there are so many touts. People are just taking passengers out of the airport without any quality service, no policing on that. So I think that's a very important place to be, where you have a quality meet and greet service available at a reasonable price. But also business class passengers can have a seamless, without paying anything within that ticket they have. And I think if you stop that congestion in the airport entrance, exit, I think that will serve a lot of good for everyone. Other than that, we also need to train. I would like to have an training institute for training the transportation people, because I think we have a major role to play with the tourism, and no one talks about it. Because our drivers meet the passengers first, and they have about 45 minutes of ride, and they can actually destroy the image of the country, and they can actually also enhance. They try to sell stores, and they try to make money from trying to take the tourists somewhere else where they get paid. But I think that is not necessary. If we create a really high quality chauffeurs where they can be the guides, and they can actually give an experience where everyone is talking about, which will enhance the experience. Going back, people talk about it. I think we need that more than anything else, and China doesn't offer that, India doesn't offer that. So that's what we have to offer. Even Thailand doesn't offer that.
Sunil, is there an opportunity there for the hotel school to train the chauffeurs, and do you offer a course now or?
Yeah, in fact, we are doing that right now.
Yeah.
Chauffeur guides, national guides, and we train them to be multilingual as well, Chinese, Spanish, Urdu. So that's one of the flagship courses we are doing under the tourism vertical.
So that's an opportunity for the Emirates Academy as well. Yeah.
Well, I think it's more of an opportunity for Dusit, because they will be setting up the school here. But if I may take this opportunity, since I'm holding the mic, I preach digital, but I'll give you an example where digital failed. The high tech failed and high touch succeeded. My passport expires in December, and I've been traveling a lot. I didn't get time to renew. When I applied for the ETA, immigration, it was rejected because of the 6-month validity requirement. Thanks to immigration, they issued a letter which allowed me to be here. So I have to thank the organizers and also immigration, where they actually issued a letter, and I have a scan here, I know it's too small for all of you to see, but thanks to this letter, I'm here today. Otherwise, I would have had to miss this wonderful conference. Thank you. Now, Lars, over to you.
What was the question? No, I was talking about the opportunity that is available for training and development of some of our.
I know it's getting late and everybody wants to see the end of this discussion, but one thing that's very important for us, when in the last few years, DUSIT as an operator has been approached by so many companies in Sri Lanka asking for assistance in training, particularly new hotel companies opening up. So we are not, in our approach, fixed down to any particular program. We want to be very flexible, we want to be very specific, and bring, through our partners and through capacities and talent locally, any kind of relevant training course, being chauffeur, being butler service, being cuisine. So we want to be very, very flexible in our approach and not lock it down into curricula, long programs that has to be 1 year, 2 years or 4 years, but very specific and relevant for the industry.
Gary, can I turn to you? This, you travel quite a lot, right? What advice would you give our policymakers to make Sri Lanka a very attractive destination, to attract this 4 million that we are talking about?
The business that we work with is
complementary.
Complementary to the 4 million.
And the controller won't take offense. So
It's definitely complementary to the 4 million. I'll talk a bit specifically about our business is, as I mentioned earlier, the planes that people are flying now have much longer range than they used to in the past.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we have to take a look at is the airspace a lot of the airspace around Sri Lanka is still controlled by India. That's something that should be looked at, that would actually enhance greatly to allow it much easier for aircraft to come into Sri Lanka. The idea of bringing 4 million people by 2020, I will applaud you if you can do this. The one thing we have to remember is that that's an extra 2 million people getting crammed into Colombo on the road. That could be a bit difficult. So one of the things that we sometimes want to look at is there's 4 million people that spend $1,000 while they're here, okay? But what if it was 2 million that spent $3,000 while it was here? So this is the other thing we can take a look at as well. And do we as a country that is 400 by 200, do we really, is that what we want to do? And again, I'm not the policymaker on that, and I can understand why we would like to do that, and that brings in, but do you want to look at quality? Do you want to look at quantity, right? Because you can also, if you bring quality, you could actually bring a lot more value into a country just on the revenue that they would bring versus the other. And so if you talk about going through the customs and you're trying to ram 200 people through your area and you have to hire these people to do that, and there's going to be a lot of complaints about this and that, the one plane of 8 people could possibly bring in way more revenue into the country to do that. And so the 4 million cannot be looked at independent on just what we're doing within the DCGA, within the airport authorities, within the authorities on. We need to take a look at how will that work with the transportation to everywhere else, because if you don't do the infrastructure to support that, you're going to bring them all in and it'll grind to a halt, and then you have a bad experience. And if you had a bad experience, normally what happens, you have a good experience, you tell one person, you have a bad experience, you tell 20. So you can actually do more long-term damage that way.
This Alston, can I turn to you? Somebody wants to know whether we are actually not managing, he's saying that we are not managing our heritage sites properly. So what are your thoughts around our heritage sites?
Our heritage sites?
Yes, that it's not being professionally managed.
I think that's a very good idea. Yeah. I think we have to manage it because, for example, like I just said, Sigiriya is about, in my mind, since I was a child, the 8th wonder of the world. When you climb it, you only are aware that this is, wow, just 3 words, 3 letters, sorry, wow. So managing those heritage sites, for example, just speaking as perhaps through foreign eyes looking down at Sigiriya, if we take Sigiriya and we manage it properly, we can have maybe a lift on the other side of Sigiriya, which will not be seen to obscure the view or make things look bad to the tourist eyes and to the people who, Sigiriya belongs to the people, so we don't want to take it away from them. But then there are people who cannot access Sigiriya, people who are disabled. Just like you go to the pyramids of Giza, so you got to make it accessible to other people. So build some fantastic toilet facilities. What do we do when we go to the top, when we want to go to the toilet? We have a problem. So you do things like that, and to do that, what the gentleman probably means is proper management. And with proper management, which we have, we are making our 4-star, 5-star hotels look like 7-star resorts. And we can do the same with our heritage sites.
Okay. Do you know this on Yala and all, any thoughts around Yala and some other sanctuaries that we have?
Yeah.
Any thoughts around that?
So I think...
Where sometimes they are more congested than the city.
No, I think what we need to understand is what are we targeting for, which kind of tourism. I think we have to create a different level of brand, which is higher grade than a normal. Because we are, like you said, we are a small island. So you can't have so much of infrastructure built, cost for millions of people. So we need to make higher quality and bring in a different layer of people. There are, I think by 2020, there are 100 million Chinese tourists alone by 2020. But if we get 0.1% of the affluent Chinese couples, I think we can be the, that's a different market segment. And we change the game. So my thought process has been quality and luxury. And I would like the tourism board and everyone to follow that kind of thought process so we can upgrade our services immensely. That's
okay. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. This, Ajay, can I turn to you again?
I'm sorry, could I just, one last question, one last point on that? The only thing on that, which I'll try to reiterate as well, is given there are limited budgets, given that there is limited resources and departments to work together, if you focus on something small and make it work, you can always get to the next step and make it bigger. But if you try to swallow the ocean too quickly, you could run into trouble. Sorry.
Ajay, can I turn to you again? The message is very clear that we need to move up market, right? All of these guys are talking about the stress that we're having on the infrastructure and the system. What are your thoughts around that, and what do we need to do going forward?
See, the other thing is, I feel the crafts market of Sri Lanka is still not gone to the next level. So if you look at Indonesia, look at Thailand, like woodwork and things like that. I heard batik, we spoke of batik in the other one, but we have 22 craft categories in Sri Lanka. Even as souvenir products, because see, those are if you look at products like those, they become like ambassadors to tourism. People take it back, they go back, they share it, they keep it in their houses. I think that's one of the other unexplored areas that we not looked at. Then how do you make we launched a brand called Arugambe Beachwear. It somehow made Arugambe more attractive. So these are emotional things that we can build on and create properties like that. I feel craft is one of the things that we can really work on. That would be a good one. From society point of view, from Sri Lanka point of view, and something is unique that we have.
Ranjit, can I turn to you? I have a SMS here. Somebody talks about the importance of connectivity and the role Sri Lankan Airlines have to play. They are asking whether you can increase the frequency from Australia. No, sorry, it's echoing a bit. There's a SMS here where people are saying connectivity is key to grow our numbers, and Sri Lankan Airlines is pivotal for that, right? Whether you can increase your frequency into Australia.
Australian frequency, we have just introduced another flight. So we would certainly, but even now it is not profitable. So we are really continuing with the flights. We have increased one, and we've also introduced a wide-bodied aircraft, which has more seats. The 330 will fly to Australia now. Okay. So I think we'll watch the situation and increase further if we really mind.
Because I think the Australian arrivals have increased significantly in the last 12 months.
Right.
And
inflow of tourists.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yeah. Any questions? Yes. Can you give him a mic? Can't hear. Can you give him a mic quickly, please?
Yeah, why don't you take this one?
Right. My question.
My question is this: everybody talk about Allah. I do research about Allah, so I find some.
You have to talk a bit louder, otherwise they won't hear.
Everybody talks about Allah.
About?
So, Allah.
Allah, okay.
So
okay.
I done a research about Allah. So I find that the station doesn't have any toilet for tourists, and I think there must be 2 or 3 additional trains for tourists for their requirements. I think they don't have any seats, and I think if we can add 2 or 3 additional wagons in every train to Allah, so we can attract more tourists.
Okay.
I also found that many of the tourists are first time came to Sri Lanka, and if we don't give treat like them we need, so they will be don't ever come again here. So I think we can do something for this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's anybody here who can answer whether we can increase the number of trains. Maybe we can ask the minister who is here to respond to that.
Much needed carriages and trains for transportation. Now, first of all, we have improved the other station. It has now come up to a acceptable standard. The transport minister has ordered extra carriages and engines from India. They are due to come in the course of this month or next month. By that time, I think we will be able to improve the transportation not only to Ella, down south, and to the northeast, all parts of Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Any other questions before?
Actually, I was talking with one of colleague in here. I was asking why your former student Kumara Sangakkara not in this summit, because as everybody know, who is he? He's our one of great ambassador for this country. Unfortunately, he worked in University of Tasmania as a brand ambassador. So I'm working in tourism industry. I'm doing mainly cricket tours. I used to play England for 6 cricket season. Now I'm trying to bringing more cricketers from England. So actually my suggestion is, can you please bring him for the tourism industry, especially Minister also. Here I would like to ask from Minister and all of you, our Sri Lankan airline CEO here, he said 170 billion we lost. But as I know, he's Kumar Sangakkara work for Keels, NTB, and few SoftLogic. All those companies are very profitable. So why don't you try to bring him for the Sri Lankan Airlines and put some advertisement for, because he got about 1 million Facebook followers. So also Heritage, I would suggest you to ask him to go on those heritage places and get some pictures and put in Facebook. Because he got more Indian followers, Pakistan, Bangladesh and UK, all the cricketers is following him. So next time I would like to see him in this summit as a guest speaker. Thank you very much.
If I might just answer that question, sir. Kumar Sangakkara does a lot for Sri Lanka already, and he was flown by Sri Lankan Airlines on their inaugural flight to open the pathway and the gateway to Australia. I was there to receive him when he came to Melbourne, and he did great yeoman service thanks to Sri Lankan Airlines and to Sri Lanka Tourism. So he's still, if I might add, Dinesh and Honourable Minister, I think he's still very, very involved. He's an honourable guy and he's very, very Sri Lankan. So maybe the rest of the question.
Dinesh, may I add that we should also look at the cricket tourism, which we have not done, and also MICE events for luxury brands. I think that will create a huge momentum of luxury quality tourism here, because we need to create, MICE events, real good MICE events for luxury brands. And cricket tourism is a huge market. No one does it.
Thank you. So, Andy Dodio, thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure this is a very interesting panel discussion and a lengthy one, and I'm sure you have many questions, but time is certainly was an amazing performance, and we've come towards the final bit of the summit. And we would once again like to welcome the Minister for gracing this occasion again. So I would like to invite the Honourable Minister, John Amaratunga, Minister of Tourism and Christian Affairs, on stage, along with Professor Venerable Vimalaratna Thera, Head of the Department of Economics, Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo, Dr. Suranga Silva, Founder, Tourism Study Program, University of Colombo, Mr. Upali Ratnayaka, Director General, SLTDA, Mr. Kasun Abenayaka, Secretary General to the Tourism Leaders Summit, Major General Nimal Krishnaratna, President, Alumni Association of Tourism Study Program, and Mr. Rohan Navaratna, Treasurer, Alumni Association, Tourism Study Program. It's time for us to present some lifetime awards. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Prema Kure, National Contribution for Tourism Development. Lifetime Award for Excellence in Industry Leadership, Mr. Hiran Kure. Lifetime Award for Academic Excellence in National Contribution for Sri Lanka Tourism, Professor Sarath Kotagama. The same award also goes to Professor Madana Bandara, Academic Excellence in National Contribution for Sri Lanka Tourism. An award for uninterrupted contribution for Tourism Leaders Summit and International Tourism Research Conference, Mr. Sanat Ukwata of Mount Lavinia Hotel. While we thank the dignitaries, we request the dignitaries to please remain on stage because there's also another important event to take place before we wind up this summit. So I would like to invite all the speakers on stage and the delegates on stage as well. We're just about to launch the website. Can we have the delegates on stage, please? Can we also have all the Lifetime Award winners to please proceed to take a photograph? Thank you very much. And now it's about time for us to launch the website. And can we have all the delegates? We will now launch the THERA website, Tourism and Hospitality Education and Research Association Asia. And we will now launch the THERA website. Honorable Minister will be doing the honors. And ladies and gentlemen, now the handing over of the outcome report of last year's Tourism Leaders Summit as a policy briefing will be held, and it will be handed over to Honorable Minister John Amaratunga by Dr. Suranga Silva and Mr. Kasun Abenayaka. Just a small request, can we have Mr. Sampath Sirivardhana, Mubarak Khaldeen, and Mrs. Pratimani Bandusena on stage for a picture, for a photograph, please? It would also be great to have all the students here for a photograph. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thank you very much to all the delegates and dignitaries. Thank you. And with that, it's time for us to conclude the Tourism Leaders Summit and International Research Symposium 2018, held in line with the World Tourism Day celebrations, organized by the Department of Economics, Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo. Thank you so much for your presence, and you're invited for a fellowship dinner at the Delegates Lounge.